If you don't mind, I'm going to be reading off a little bit. I made a few scribbles and notes, not to forget to mention a few of the important details. I would like to start off by saying my name is Sofia Yushenko, and I'm moderating, not monitoring, the news session. So nowadays, we have more access to information than we have ever had before in human history. We have more opportunities to write. We have more opportunities to voice our opinions. You no longer have to be a journalist to get a message out. You just need a phone or a computer. A message can go viral within a few minutes, but also with so much information, it can be buried with so much more information. With all of this change, it's not a surprise that there has been an increase in mistrust towards media. Echo chambers have continuously polarized our society. We are more fearful today, more fearful than ever, of fake news and of authoritarians controlling the media narrative. But what happened? How did this happen? And is it possible that mainstream media is no longer the answer? To talk about this, we will have PJ Thum, who is a coordinator of Project Southeast Asia and a research fellow at University of Oxford. PJ and his colleagues have been harassed, threatened, investigated, interrogated, smeared, and spied upon for speaking out in defense of democracy, human rights, and social justice in Southeast Asia. He started down this path when, as an academic historian, he uncovered a major scandal proving that the Singaporean government had lied about their use of detention without trial. So in 2017, he and his two fellow activists founded New Naratif, a Southeast Asian think tank and media company that promotes democracy in Southeast Asia. Despite repeated threats and attacks upon him, he continues to research the truth and work for freedom of expression and information. Thank you. PJ Thum.
Thank you very much, Susan. Right. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Celia, for organizing this. I think you said this morning that something great starts with an idea and a lot of naivety, right? And I think in my case, that is especially true because until a year ago, I had never worked in the media industry. I'm not a journalist. I have no experience. I still don't consider myself a journalist, even though I run a media company. I'm a historian. But I think the two professions, journalism and academic, are not that all different. What we do is very similar. We research, we write. The only difference is the sources we employ, the timescales that we use, the conventions we obey. And at the core of it, we want the same thing. We want to seek the truth. And our jobs cannot succeed without freedom of expression and inquiry. And this is the crux of how I started and how I envisioned my company, New Naratif, and how we run the company. And I think it's also the crux of why we succeed and why we continue to exist. So let me explain. In 2012, after I got my doctorate from Oxford, I went back to Singapore and I joined the National University of Singapore. And I began to do what an academic is supposed to do: research, teach, lecture. And in particular, I wanted to work on issues which are important to my people, to the people of Singapore. I uncovered a major scandal. I found out that between 1963 and 1988, the government of Singapore had systematically lied to the people of Singapore about their use of detention without trial. Right? Nearly 2,500 people over that period of time, opposition politicians, activists, trade unionists, journalists, the government accused them of being part of a communist conspiracy to subvert the government and locked them up without trial. None of them have ever been brought to trial on the charges they were detained under. Some of them have been locked up for decades. The longest was for 31 years. Because the first of these major detentions, the first round of this had occurred while Singapore was still a British colony. I was able to go to London and find declassified British documents that proved that not only did the Singapore government, specifically the Prime Minister, had no evidence that any of these people were communists or part of any conspiracy, but that he knew that they weren't communists. He knew they were innocent, but it was all for political reasons, to pave the way to independence and a smooth decolonization. After I published my work in 2013, and I started giving lectures about this, two things happened. The first was that I was subject to a lot of public attacks by the government, seeking to discredit me and my ideas. So I have been interrogated publicly, I've been threatened, I've been smeared in the government-controlled media. In 2014, I was told I would never work in Singapore as an academic again. So I subsequently had to leave and go back to Oxford. But secondly, and more importantly, after one of my public lectures, one of these former detainees came up to talk to me. And he told me that when he had been detained for several years, they had told him inside that, okay, we know you're not a communist, but you were manipulated, you were used by the communists to further their nefarious agenda. And he felt very ashamed by that because he was a patriot, he wanted the best for his people. And when he was on the inside, his wife and his children had suffered a lot. And now here I come along, several decades later, with the exact documents to show that there was never any evidence of any of that. He had been fighting for truth and justice this whole time. And he said to me, PJ, that he could, he said, I can look my wife and my children in the eye again. And he said to me that, PJ, you've given me my pride and my dignity back. And the privilege, the honor of being able to do that for someone is immense. It drives me. The work we do matters. The truth matters. The truth can make a difference. And since then, two questions have occupied me. The first is that if I, just this one person, can research and create change, how much more so if I can somehow build a platform that empowers other people to research and create change by telling the truth? And the second, more prosaically, how do I go home to Singapore and live again in my country with my family? And this is how I conceived New Naratif. It's a Southeast Asian platform for research, journalism, art, and community organization. We seek to write evidence-based stories of meaning and relevance to the people of Southeast Asia, and in particular stories which governments don't want told. I'm going to focus just on three aspects of how the company was conceived and how we run it. And I think these three aspects inform both our vision, but also why people trust us. The first is structural, right? And this is a response to the threats we face in Southeast Asia. Independent media companies just get bought out by governments, by government-allied capitalist interests. So what happens is that they are put under pressure. The advertisers are put under pressure by the government, right? If you're part of the capitalist system, it can be used against you. And so what New Naratif is structured to completely avoid that. Our parent company is a membership society, limited by guarantee. There's no equity. We can't be bought or sold. No one will ever make a profit from New Naratif. We're not only non-profit, we're anti-profit because we are dedicated to putting everything we make back in the company. No money can ever be taken out of it. We have one source and one source of revenue only, and that's our members. We don't rely on anything else. We'll take grants, we'll take donations, but ultimately we are funded only by our members. And when you have only one source of revenue, you take care of that source of revenue. When our members sign up, we only ask them for three details: their name, their email address, and their country of residence. There's a lot of fear in Southeast Asia about being seen to be part of any sort of non-government, independently aligned organization. And so we tell our members, look, we don't even care if you tell us a fake name, a throwaway email address, right? If you want just to meet us in a dark corner and pay us cash so it's untraceable, that's fine too. We understand. We go out of our way to work with our members. Southeast Asian governments, though, as I mentioned, they all rely heavily on capitalism. They rely on this neoliberal model of capitalist development and performance legitimacy. And that means also it's sort of an Achilles heel because they can't easily cut off many of these flows of capital without undermining their own interests and their own supporters' interests. So we use that same system to make international transfers, to work outside of Southeast Asia. The company is based in the UK, but we employ freelance journalists all across Southeast Asia, and we pay them using these international transfers so that they can evade formal regulatory requirements for journalists and media companies, so that they can evade media oppression, basically. The second thing is that we are very much a values-driven organization, and proudly so. We explicitly fight for democracy, freedom of expression, and freedom of inquiry in Southeast Asia. We have a 12-point manifesto that we put up on our website explaining who we are and what we're fighting for and what we believe in. We publish evidence-based stories without fear or favor, and we argue for accountability and transparency in all our public institutions. But it's not enough to simply argue for values. You must live the values you believe in. And that's why New Naratif is embarrassingly transparent. We put all our stuff online. We put our accounts online. If you look online, it's quite clear how much our journalist makes, how much I make, how much we all make, and what we're spending it on. When we make decisions, our first question is always, what is the moral, ethical thing to do? It's not about the best story or the whatever helps us survive or make profits, make money to survive, but what is the moral, ethical thing to do? And that is the basis on which we formulate our policies and make our decisions. So I'm very proud, for example, right, that all our freelancers, and for those of you in the media industry, don't keel over in shock when I say this, all our freelancers are paid within 24 hours of them sending in their invoice. Right? In an industry where freelancers routinely wait months, some years to get paid, we pay everyone. The majority of people are paid within 12 hours. That is really important to us because it is the moral thing to do. We also hold regular open meetings in which anyone, in particular our members, can come and meet my editor-in-chief and I and just ask us any question about the company once a month, online and offline. And this is really important. This personal contact, trust is built, I think, best built face-to-face, when you can look someone in the eye, when you can shake their hand, when you can ask them any question, and they answer in an open and honest manner. So it is really important for us that we remain accountable to everyone publicly and among our members. Great. My phone seems to have died. Hold on a second. Okay, here we go. And this leads to the third thing, a community of action. We found that if we genuinely want change, it's not enough to simply put out stories, to put out news. You have to organize people around that news, to take action to make the world a better place. It's so easy for people to read something on Facebook and get angry or upset, and then do nothing. Right? If you want people to take action, you need to empower them and give them the tools to take action. And so what we do, we hold democracy workshops, trying to teach people how to, the tools for creating positive change in the world around them. And these meetings and workshops have a great diversity of positions on a lot of issues, but everyone who attends shares the values of mutual respect and honest engagement that defines our community. And in our first year, we have discovered that it is these three things, actually, not our content, not the stories we put out, right? Not the fact that we publish in English and Bahasa Indonesia and Bahasa Malaysia. These are all great. But the reason why people join, the reason why they are passionately committed, the reason why 10% of our community voluntarily pays more than the membership subscription fee. Right? There are people who subscribe at thousands of dollars a year when the membership fee is $52 a year. Why do they do that? Because they believe in these values. They believe in how we run the company. And our surveys of members have overwhelmingly found that it's these values, it's how we run things, it's that we live by the values we believe, that we engage with people. These are the reasons why people join and why people support New Naratif. People trust us because we have no regard for profits. They know that we don't care about the money, that we will never put the money above the interests of our members and above our values, that we've structured the company so it's impossible for that to happen. They trust us because we're open and honest about what we believe in, about our values, that we are transparent and accountable, that our first question as a company is always, what is moral? What is the right thing to do? And we are very open and honest about the conversations that we have internally when we struggle very frequently with these questions. People trust us because they believe strongly in our purpose and appreciate our clarity of purpose, and they know that every employee of the company believes passionately in these values, and we put our lives on the line every day. In a region where independent journalists are harassed and arrested and assaulted and even killed and disappeared, we go out there every day to provide the truth. People trust us also, I think most importantly, because we trust them. And it's through all these things that we build the trust. And I think we summarize it this way. The way we see the world is this, that the division in the world right now, the future, it's not about issues, it's not about left and right. The division is between those who divide and those who offer hope. And it is so easy to divide by offering fear. It takes a lot more time to build than it does to destroy. But if you offer people hope, and if you offer to unite them, they respond, and they desperately want meaning in their lives, and they respond to that. So that is New Naratif. Too many seek to, govern and run businesses through fear, but New Naratif, we succeed because we offer hope. Thank you very much.